Let's do a little bit of myth busting today. There's been lots of talk online about Bugatti's service, repair, and maintenance costs recently online.
For months, Mat Armstrong had been doing something almost nobody in the world would dare to attempt. He was rebuilding a crashed Bugatti Chiron Pur Sport that had already been surrounded by warnings, restrictions, and one very important message from the people behind the car. Don't touch it. But Mat did, and then something happened that changed the entire story. Mate Rimac, the man at the top of Bugatti Rimac, finally stepped into controversy. And this wasn't just another comment from a manufacturer. Because by this point, Mat's Bugatti rebuild had become much bigger than one damaged hypercar sitting inside a workshop. It had become a battle between two completely different ideas about what a Bugatti should be. On one side was a company responsible for building some of the most technically advanced cars on the planet. On the other was a YouTuber who had built his reputation by doing exactly what manufacturers told him couldn't be done. And now, for the first time, the two worlds were directly colliding. The story actually began with a Bugatti Chiron Pur Sport that looked almost impossible to save. This wasn't a normal crash-damaged car. The Chiron Pur Sport is one of the rarest and most expensive hypercars on the planet, built around a carbon fiber structure, an enormous W16 engine, an engineering designed for extreme performance. This was a machine capable of speeds that make ordinary supercars look slow. So when one of these cars was seriously damaged, the obvious question wasn't simply, can it be repaired? The real question was, who could possibly repair it? The car eventually ended up in the hands of Alex Gonzalez, and Mat Armstrong became involved in the attempt to bring it back. And that's where the story took a completely different direction. Because instead of sending the car straight back to the factory, Mat decided to investigate what was actually wrong with it. Piece by piece, the Chiron started coming apart. Body panels, cooling systems, interior components, electrical connections, and eventually, parts of the structure that most people would never expect to see outside a Bugatti facility. The deeper Mat went, the more complicated the project became. But then came the problem that would change everything. Bugatti's position was clear. This wasn't simply a matter of replacing a few damaged parts. The company had serious concerns about the structural condition of the vehicle and the safety implications of repairing it outside its official network. And there was another problem. Getting the parts wasn't going to be easy. Mat's project was now running directly into the wall of the manufacturer. According to reporting on the saga, Bugatti had refused to supply certain parts for an independent repair and had instead offered a factory-supervised repair process, with estimates initially reaching around $1.6 million before reportedly coming down substantially. That number alone was enough to shock people, because Mat wasn't looking at the situation like a normal Bugatti owner. He was looking at it like a mechanic. If the part could be identified, if the damage could be understood, if the engineering could be replicated safely, then maybe the impossible wasn't actually impossible. And this is where the story gets interesting. Because Mat wasn't simply fighting a repair bill. He was challenging an entire philosophy. Bugatti's philosophy was essentially built around control, validation, engineering standards, and safety. Mat's philosophy was different. Understand the problem, find the solution, build it, test it, and keep going. Neither approach was simple. But then came the moment that turned this from a repair story into something much bigger. Mate Rimac spoke publicly about the situation. And suddenly, the man behind Bugatti Rimac was no longer watching controversy from the sidelines. He was part of the story. Rimac's argument wasn't simply that Mat didn't know how to turn a wrench. The issue was far more serious. A Bugatti isn't just a collection of expensive parts. Every component has to work as part of an engineered system, a carbon structure, a gearbox, cooling, sensors, airbags, electronics, and an engine producing an enormous amount of power. If something goes wrong at ordinary road speed, that's one problem. If something goes wrong at extreme speed, the consequences can be completely different. And that's exactly why Rimac emphasized safety. But Mat's rebuild had already reached a point where walking away didn't seem like an option. Then came one of the craziest moments of the entire project. The Chiron had to be separated. The kind of operation that sounds almost absurd when you describe it. This wasn't a normal car being placed on a lift. This was a multi-million-dollar hypercar being dismantled in a workshop environment. And the equipment wasn't some magical Bugatti machine sitting in the corner. Mat and his team had to engineer their own way of handling the situation. At one point, even something as ordinary as a garbage bin became part of the solution. It sounds ridiculous, until you realize what was sitting above it. A Bugatti Chiron. And that contrast became one of the defining images of the entire story. A car representing some of the most advanced engineering in the world, being rebuilt with a kind of hands-on creativity that made Mat famous in the first place. But here's where things became even more uncomfortable. As Mat opened the car, he started finding components that looked surprisingly familiar. Some parts appeared to share origins or design relationships with components used elsewhere across the Volkswagen Group. And suddenly, viewers started asking a completely different question. If a Bugatti contained components related to parts found in much more ordinary cars, why are some Bugatti parts so incredibly expensive? That question exploded online. But this is where it's important not to oversimplify the situation. A part looking physically similar doesn't automatically mean it's identical internally. And that's exactly the point Mate Rimac pushed back on. A housing, connector, or external component can look familiar while the internal materials, calibration, software, tolerances, or validation are completely different. That's something most viewers would never see. And it's one of the reasons this entire argument became so complicated, because both sides were talking about different things. Mat was looking at what could physically be repaired. Bugatti was looking at what could be validated and guaranteed. And somewhere between those two positions was the actual truth. Then the impossible started happening. Mat and his team didn't just take the car apart. They started putting it back together. Radiators were rebuilt. Structural work continued. Interior components were recreated. Systems were reconnected. And eventually, the car started showing signs of life again. For a project that had been surrounded by warnings, skepticism, and enormous financial figures, that moment was massive. But it still wasn't the end. Because making a Bugatti start is one thing. Making it safe is something else entirely. And that's where Mate Rimac's involvement became even more important. His public response wasn't simply a rejection of Mat's work. It became an explanation of why Bugatti viewed the situation so differently. Rimac addressed the reasons behind the company's position, including the enormous development and validation costs associated with ultra-low volume components. And suddenly, the story wasn't as simple as YouTuber versus evil car company. There was another side. A company had spent years developing a machine capable of extraordinary performance. It had engineers, testing procedures, safety requirements, and a reputation that could be damaged by a single catastrophic failure. But Mat had another argument. The car wasn't sitting in a factory. It was sitting in the real world. It had been damaged. Its owner wanted to repair it. And Mat believed he could find a way. That tension is what made this story so powerful, because neither side could simply make the other disappear. Mat couldn't erase Bugatti's engineering history, and Bugatti couldn't erase what Mat had already accomplished. The internet had watched the car come apart. They watched the chassis separate. They watched components being rebuilt. And they watched the impossible machine slowly begin to resemble a car again. Then came something even more surprising. Mat eventually spoke about what had happened behind the scenes, and the picture became more complicated than the online argument suggested. The relationship wasn't simply about one man attacking a manufacturer. It was about a project that had become a massive source of attention, pressure, and debate. And Mate Rimac had now publicly explained his side. That changed the dynamic, because before Rimac spoke, viewers could fill in the blanks themselves. They could assume Bugatti was simply protecting its profits. They could assume Mat was simply chasing views. But once both sides started explaining their reasoning, the real issue became impossible to ignore. Who gets to decide when a damaged car is repairable? The manufacturer? The owner? The engineer? The mechanic? Oh, all of them. And that question goes far beyond Bugatti. Because if a car is legally owned by someone, should the manufacturer control how that car is repaired? At the same time, if that car is capable of more than 400 kilometers per hour, should anyone be allowed to repair its critical systems without factory approval? That's the uncomfortable question, and there isn't an easy answer. But here's the part nobody expected. Instead of the story ending with Mat versus Bugatti, Mate Rimac's response actually created the possibility of something completely different. A conversation, not necessarily an official partnership, not a confirmed collaboration, but something far more interesting. A direct line between the man rebuilding the car and the man responsible for the company that built it. And that's why the title of this story matters. Because joining forces doesn't necessarily mean signing a contract. Sometimes it means two completely different sides finally sitting in the same conversation. The mechanic, the engineer, the manufacturer, the owner, and the machine connecting all of them. The Chiron had started as a wreck. Then it became a repair project. Then a controversy. Then a debate about the future of automotive repair. And now, it had become a test of whether two completely different worlds could understand each other. Mat Armstrong didn't suddenly become Bugatti, and Mate Rimac didn't suddenly become a YouTube mechanic. But something had changed. The conversation had moved beyond the original argument, and that might be the most important part of the entire story. Because if Mat eventually gets his Chiron completely road-ready, the question won't simply be whether he proved Bugatti wrong. It will be whether he proved that there's another legitimate way to approach the repair of an ultra-complex hypercar. And if Bugatti's concerns turn out to be justified, the consequences could be just as significant. Because then Mat's rebuild becomes a warning about how difficult these cars really are. Either way, someone is going to learn something from this Bugatti. And that's what makes this story so much bigger than YouTube. This isn't just about a crash Chiron. It's about ownership, engineering, safety, repair rights, and the uncomfortable space between what a manufacturer says is possible and what someone is willing to attempt anyway. Mate Rimac entered the conversation because the Bugatti story had become impossible to ignore. Mat Armstrong kept going because stopping was never really his style. And somewhere in between those two worlds sits one of the most controversial Bugatti rebuilds the internet has ever seen. The car isn't just being rebuilt anymore. It's being judged by engineers, by mechanics, by millions of viewers, and eventually by the road itself. Because a final verdict won't come from YouTube comments. It won't come from Bugatti. And it won't come from Mat. It will come when this incredible machine finally has to prove itself. And when that moment arrives, everyone is going to be watching.